All right, all right, all right, all right. Thank you so much for everyone who has joined thus far. Please make sure that you hit the like button on your way in. Make sure you hit the like button on your way in and make sure that you say hello. That way we can acknowledge you. Before I had an ongoing issue with a good friend of mine. His name is Dr. Brantley. And I said, every time he comes on my show, there's always some technical difficulty, but it may be me. It may be me because we had an issue right before we went live here. So it was a good thing um, that we came on early to talk and make sure we were all squared away. Yes, hello, Miss New York Chocolate. Anyone else who's in the building, make sure you say hello. That way we can acknowledge you. Thank you so much for doing so. And make sure that you hit the like button on your way in or at minimum on your way out. So let's see who else is here. No one else has acknowledged himself yet. 10 people watching. Thank you so much. So today, hey there, Miss Nicola. Thank you so much. Hello to Rhonda. Hello to everyone else who's going to watch this in the future. And thank you so much for checking out this episode. Today we have a good friend of mine. I'm hoping I can say that, right? Good friend of mine.
Definitely.
We had a few laughs. We had a few laughs. Miss Judith Rapley, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really, really appreciate it. I'm looking forward to this conversation and all that, all that, all that. So, Miss Judith Rapley, please, if you would, tell us about yourself.
Oh, geez. Hi there, Lawrence. Good to be on. And yes, based on some of our innocuous exchanges already, we are already good friends. You know, a few things about me that some don't already. So I am Judith Rapley. I'm a psychotherapist and life coach. I work with individuals who, especially those who are leaders, supporting others, the caretakers, helping individuals who deal with things like, and I'm going to use quotations with some of the language that has become common, individuals who deal with imposter syndrome, individuals who have the responsibility for caring for others. I work primarily with leaders, those who are leading others in some ways and who want and need the support to help themselves to ensure that they're living well lives that are mentally and emotionally well, as much as they are supporting and helping others, whether within their family, their household, work, corporate, or nonprofits. So I work with those individuals at that level to make sure they're well so that they don't bleed as much on others and so that they can provide healthy support for others and themselves.
Bleed as much. That's I like the
Yeah,
way you
yeah,
put that.
yeah, yeah. Sometimes we will bleed at times. We don't want to bleed as much or all the time. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, very good. Let me greet some more people who've come in. Said hello to New York. Hello, Miss Deborah. Hello to Stacia, the smart singer. Hello. Good evening, Miss Larry. Hiya, Miss T. And Chocolate is also saying hello to Deborah, Stacy, smart singer, and Miss Larry. Thank you so much. Um, so we want to talk about getting the most out of therapy.
Yeah.
So why do people come to your hello, Steph? Hello, Stephanie. Why do people go to therapy? In particular, your type of therapy, people,
Mhm.
and I definitely want to dig into that imposter syndrome. So if I forget, make sure
Okay.
to remind me. Remind me not to forget, and I'll remind you to remind me not to forget. So,
Okay.
why do people go through therapy, particularly your line of work?
Okay. So I want to always start any public conversation by ensuring that I make clear that a lot of what I'm going to say are going to be generalizations. And there are always going to be exceptions and there are always going to be nuances for different people. I say that because I think with mental health being having more common language and common conversation, I see people taking a piece of something and amplifying it and generalizing it to everyone. So I want to be just very careful in saying that and state that from the onset. What are some of the reasons why people come to see me? I would say because they need help and support with the life realities that they're dealing with, whether past, present, or future. I want to make a distinction because I'm sure somewhere along the line today or at some point you will have some purist therapists who are going to see this and might have an issue even with my title as therapist and life coach. But if I start specifically with those who come to see me in my therapeutic or clinical background, something is happening in their life right now that makes their functioning challenging or difficult, or someone in their life, in some instances, family member, or in some instances, work, has said that they're not functioning at what their usual level has been, and they need some support, some clinical support, some mental support, some emotional support in understanding, dissecting, processing what that might be towards better functioning for themselves in the future. Those who see me more on the life coaching component, they're pretty much functioning overall in their lives. They might be those individuals who look quite successful on the outside in terms of their life realities, but they have some goals for the future, or they themselves recognize internally that there's some places of challenges, and they want to look at that. They want more perhaps direct support in terms of my life coaching towards improving the quality of their lives, or moving in some instances from what we would say from surviving or being okay to thriving or setting new goals or moving forward. So those are, I would say, the two particular categories from the ways in which my particular expertise come together, or the different kinds of clients that I see.
Very good. So let's deal with these tyrannical purists.
Yeah.
What's up with them? Why would they have smoke for your definitions?
Yeah. So one, I think that there is a level of protection around the industry or the field. And so that would be one reason I would say that someone would have a reaction to someone being both life coach and therapist. Some would say that there's been a overshadowing in the last couple of years, maybe decade, with life coaches who are not certified, because the coaching field does not require any level of certification by law. People do get certified because they're interested in doing so, and they want to establish their credibility, so they'll do that, or they want to learn, so they will go and get training. But it's not in any way it's not in any way licensed in the United States of America, and I'm not sure abroad. And so those who have gone through the clinical work and the years and the hours, the arduous hours to get their clinical degree, would have an issue in terms of how much more popular life coaching sometimes has gotten prior to, of course, the last 4 or 5 years, the level of investment that people are willing to make in coaching versus therapy. And so, yeah, there's that level of competitiveness that sometimes exists there in terms of, life coaches and therapists. But I think I would always say, even before I got my certification, I was always using some of the elements and some of the practices of life coaching in my clinical work anyways. And I tend to lean towards the models and the theories that are in that line a bit more than some of the more puristic, medicine-driven clinical work that I am also capable of doing. But I kind of use that, in specific situations with specific clients.
Yeah, it's always those eggheads who went through a bunch of school, right? They always got to be very protectionistic with their stuff, right? I went to all this school, I went to all this training. You're gonna come see me, and don't go to the life coach. Why do you think that the life coaches are more popular now? Is it the price? What's up with that?
It's not the price, because usually the price is much higher. So it's not the price.
I thought I charged pretty much too, but okay, go ahead.
Yeah, usually not the price, because sometimes therapists are getting paid, still $40 an hour and $50 an hour, while life coaches can charge you, $500 a session and even more in some instances. So it's definitely not the price. The popularity, it's gotten trendy. It's been trendy in the last 5 years. The use of social media is I think part of it as well. You see, every third, fourth person you see life coach. So that would be two of the reasons. I think sometimes it doesn't require, at times, the depth of work that clinical work will require. I think sometimes people feel that the outcomes might come quicker, in terms of let's just get what I call with my clients, and I tease them about this, when they're like, okay, Judith, I don't want to get to the bottom of it. I want to get to the how do I change this? How do I fix this? So it's more of a quicker modality, and some people, that's what they want to entertain. Sometimes it includes what I call the tips, tricks, and tools. The tips, tricks, and tools versus getting to the bottom of things, which clinical work can be more process oriented than focused on just behavioral outcomes.
Very good. Let me say hello to some more people. Nicole, hello. Brenda Lee, hello from Michigan. Hey everybody, to from Maya, and thank you everyone for tuning in. Make sure you hit the like button on your way in. If you do come in, make sure that you say hello. That way we can acknowledge you. Just joined from Guyana, South America. Guyana is on my hit list to visit one day. Thank you so
Nice.
much, Miss Yoli. I gotta hit Guyana. I heard a lot about it. So I want to talk about getting the most out of therapy. That's the
Mhm,
title, right? So people
mhm,
come in, and what is, in your opinion, the best to get the most out of it, right? Do people come in and like as you just mentioned, people come in, they just want to jump straight to it, just fix the situation. Is it
mhm.
better to do the deep hard work, or is it better just to set some goals and just go from there?
Because of the society we're living in and understanding that people want quick fixes, you want to have an idea of what the path is going to be. So when I have a consultation, I ask people at the consultation, my free consultation, what is it, what's happening, and what is it that they hope to change? And we talk about that within a specific time frame. Excuse me. So I would say that it's important to set the goals, but make sure that as you're going through the process of therapy, that you're reevaluating and resetting those goals. Because what a individual by themselves might think is the issue coming in the process of discovery and work with the clinician, they might discover that there's some other things that are part of that, and there should be room enough and flexibility enough to shift those goals. I would say to the person that is in therapy, how to get the most out of it is to be honest and transparent as best as they can, right? I never believe that my clients are lying, but I also know that typically I probably only know a good 50 to 70% of what they want me to know. So I always work under the assumption that there's more behind what they're saying. So from the client's perspective, I would say be as open and transparent as you're comfortable. And when you're not, say that. I've had clients bring up issues and say, I'm not ready to discuss that yet. And I would say, okay, we acknowledge it. We're not going to not recognize that this might be a thing or issue for you, but we recognize and agree we're not dealing with that at this time. And later on, that usually comes up again. I always sometimes ask them, do I have the permission to bring it back up again if I deem it necessary at a later point? And usually they'll say yes. And usually upon the second or third attempt to discuss a topic, we are able to touch it and go where we need to go. Um, how else to get the best out of therapy? Be consistent. Again, when we talk about the tips, tricks, and tools, sometimes the client comes in, there's something that is ailing them in their life, something not working well, and so they're like, "Yeah, I want to see you every week." And so they agree, they make the commitment for a time, and then after 2 months, whatever the malaise has been, whatever the challenge has been, decreases, and they're like, "Okay, I'm good now. See you later. Bye." And so I would say that if you really want consistent, long-term, lasting outcomes in your life, or whatever the issue or topic is, I would suggest that people go a little longer and continue consistently, whatever that might mean for them in terms of consistent time. So those are 2 or 3 of the recommendations I would offer in terms of how to get the best out of therapy and the most out of therapy.
Honesty and consistency, and Rhonda
Mhm.
is giving you a 100. They're saying
Yes,
it's facts.
yes, yeah.
Um, so you deal with mostly, well, I'm using this word, so forgive me if I'm wrong, right? Mostly people who are kind of driven, right? CEOs, things like that. Is that correct?
In my coaching, CEOs, entrepreneurs, leaders in churches, C-suite individuals in my coaching, not necessarily the same in my clinical work. Mhm.
Okay. So in your clinical work, what do you mostly deal with?
Everybody over
Do you,
21 now.
okay, okay. People with pulses. Okay.
Yeah,
So
over 21 who they and I in the screening have consulted and believe that we might be a good fit. That's the other thing I want to bring up. We have had the consultation. They think we would be a good fit. They have mentioned things that are things that I work on. They have done their due diligence on me. Back in the day, it was the board, and today it's social media. So they have looked me up, my website, social media, whatever else, and there's something that has connected for and with them. Someone recommended them, maybe someone I've seen before, past client or current client. And then in that consultation, we've had a conversation, and they think, okay, this could work. And I also think based on the issues that they present and the goals they might have initially presented, we can work well together. Primarily those individuals are dealing with as subsets, anxiety, depression, family trauma, past traumas in life, different types of abuses. Those are the individuals that I'm dealing with, the issues actually that they're dealing with, that I have, that I deal with in my clinical work.
Okay, very good. I wanted to get to the nexus between the business world and their relationships and see what type. I mean, because you talked about people who are not ready to tell all their business for a number of reasons, variety of reasons. Um, do you see first of all, do you do relationship type of stuff, or is it just people dealing with
Yes.
past traumas?
Most at some point in my work with most individuals, we are talking about relationship. Why? We all are in relationship with someone, with people. And so that usually comes up at some point, even if it wasn't the identified goal at the onset, right? Everybody has a mother, present, past, deceased, and those relationships affect people. Some people have children, some people have spouses or partners that they're dating, and people are at work. So relationships is one of the main topics of about 8 subtopics that usually comes up with my clients at some point or the other, whether they're coming in discussing it, or it comes up along the way, or they have some goals they want to set in regards to relationships for the future.
Okay. So the issue of accountability, that's got to come up when you're dealing with trauma and stuff. Particularly, we talk about relationships, romantic relationships in particular, or sometimes even probably familiar relationships, right? There's accountability, right? I messed up. I did something. I gotta do some type of internal work. Is that difficult have you seen a difficulty in pulling that out of people, helping people through that and all that?
It is not my role as a clinician to superimpose accountability on anyone in the work that I do, whether as a clinician or as a coach. That's not my role to make them admit that they were wrong, right? I tell them I'm not in this role, even though I'm a minister. I'm not a minister. I'm not a priest. I'm not the police. So I don't have to make you admit anything at all. If their relationships are being impacted by their failure to take some level of accountability in their relationships, then that's how I would typically present it to them. You have this relationship with this person. You're telling me that because you didn't say sorry, because you didn't own any part of whatever the situation was, this person is looking to end the relationship with you. It's causing conflict in the relationship. They're feeling like you're not being fair. Is that what you want to see happen in your life? What do you want? Is that what you want to see happen? Are you prepared to look at how that might impact or change the outcome of this relationship or the process in this relationship? And I think with that presentation, some folks are willing to say, maybe I have a role to play in it too. Maybe there's a part that I contributed as well. And when I do couples, because I do have some couples that I work with as well, I bring that up a little bit more, because typically when couples come in, this is the work that they want to do. Right. And so even in working with individuals who are couples, I tell them that when they come in, we get 3 clients. I get 3 clients, party A, party B, and party C, which is the relationship. And the relationship requires people to be, both individuals, to have some sense of ownership or look at how they show up. But that same self-reflection has to happen in all our relationships. If they're going to be someone who is going to do this work and have a growth mindset as a part of their value system, which most people who are coming to therapy, that is a value that they typically present. I want to change something. Then we look at how are they willing to participate in that change, besides expecting everybody else to change.
Okay, so that there is, I mean, there is a little bit of I mean, you're probably going about it in a roundabout way. I expect everybody else to change, and it's really some internal work that's got to be done on my part. So.
Yeah, can I tell you a little joke? And again, someone might be offended, but I'm going to say it anyways. I find it typical that most of the times because we're talking a little about men in therapy. Most of the times when I get a male person coming into therapy, they're typically the ones telling me, I'm here for you to help me figure out how to change my wife, how to change my boss, how to change my kids. To the reverse, again, these are generalizations. Most women are coming in and they're like, what's wrong with me? Where am I wrong? what's going on. And so neither of those two are fully truths, right? They're both partial truths. The male person needs to look at how he's showing up and how others are perceiving him. And a lot of the women that I see also need to be looking at why am I superimposing and giving myself, 100% of the responsibility, and not looking at where there might be other contributing factors or people contributing to this occasion as well. Again, these are the people that I see that are screened into my work. If I were to ever get someone that says, I'm not interested in looking at me at all, I just want this to be the case, I would very clearly declare to that person, they are not my ideal client, and I'm not sure if this would be a good fit.
Very good. Very good. So we do have a question. I think you kind of talked about this, but we'll go through it. What is the difference between a life coach and therapist?
Okay.
They might have joined a little late, but
yeah. No problem. I'll repeat a little bit of what we did talk about already. As a therapist, I work with individuals who most of the time they're in some level of trauma. When they come to me, they've experienced some kind of trauma or neglect in their past, in their childhood, even in their young adulthood in some instances. And so we're looking to help them come to a minimum level of functioning. I'm using in my mind, primarily one of the tools is the DSM-5 now, I think it is, which is a manual from a more medicinal perspective that is used for insurance companies and so forth. I'm using that tool to look at frequency of whatever is happening, the impact on their lives, how long and pervasive their concerns, issues, and symptoms, right? Medicinal word symptoms have been. So we're looking at the past a lot in terms of clinical work as a therapist, as a psychotherapist. And we're looking at a lot of times primarily just themselves in relationship to their lives and other people. As a life coach, my work is a little broader and it also goes a little wider. And I'm also allowed in terms of my life coaching with people to look at specific areas. Sometimes I'm doing relationship life coaching. Sometimes I'm doing career coaching. Sometimes I'm doing business coaching. When I have individuals like myself who are therapists or life coach, I'm doing practice coaching. They're looking to develop their practices as well. And so we're looking at where they are now, and we're developing goals for the future so that they can thrive further in their lives. Only other thing I want to say is that sometimes some of my clients come in from a therapeutic perspective clinically, based on their place and level of functioning and what they identify issue or needs are for them. And over time, if we work for an extended period of time, we might end our clinical work because their baseline has risen. And then we move from that into now, let's set some goals for the future in this or that particular area. So that's the way that, again, I operate, doing the work with both particular types of individuals and with both buckets and certifications.
Very good. Very good. So if you guys have any more questions, I am going to open up the panel a little bit later so anybody can come on and join in and ask a question or two. That'll probably be the last question that she's already discussed that we're going to open up to, because I don't want to repeat ourselves. Make sure you guys hit the like button, please, on your way in. Let's see. Let's talk about men and women in therapy. Who goes to therapy more, men or women?
Definitely women.
Okay.
Definitely women. There are many societal values and reasons why women go to therapy more. I want to know.
Look at you sitting back. Listen, I'm gonna get into this.
This is starting to get good. So I want to note that during the last 4 or 5 years, I was excited and amazed at the number of men who came to therapy and who did therapy with me. Why did I say with me? Me, a Black woman. And they were men of different races and ethnicities, right? So that was surprising. I probably at any given time would have said prior to 2020 that I had 1 or 2 men on my caseload portfolio of typically about like 15 to 20 people. I would have 1 male person, 1 man. In the last 5 years, there were peak times. I want to say 2020 and 2021. My practice was about 30. We went from about maybe 10% to about 30% men. And no offense to the ladies, I loved it. Why did I love it? I loved it because we live in a society where men carry power. They have contact with many different people. And for me to work with male leaders who have impact, influence, and power towards their improved health and wellness, and recognizing the way that that will spill over, just like I talked about bleeding. The other side, there's bleeding and there's spill over. Believing and knowing and seeing how that would spill over to their lives and the lives of their significant others in a lot of instances, to the lives of the people that they were responsible for. That truly was amazing to me because, again, I just felt like the impact would be so multiplied. And I was excited for that. Now, interestingly enough, now that things are so-called shifted, and once things got sort of fixed in some instances, there went some of my male clients after a year or a year and a half or so. But I was excited for that. And I think that it's important, and I wish that there were more men in therapy. But I do understand that there are barriers, and perhaps you can touch on that in a little bit. There are barriers to men going to therapy. I want to make sure that I call it barriers and not just that men don't want to go to therapy. There are barriers that I believe that exist to men getting into or pursuing or getting into therapy. Yeah.
Well, I was going to ask you about one, what I would call barrier, whether it's health insurance and or the ability to pay. But please speak about any other barriers besides finances.
Yes. The financial barrier is one that is across the board for both men and women. It exists. And it's a challenge for me as someone who works as a micro clinician, meaning I do one-on-one, but also have work that I do in the community at a larger macro level, to not constantly speak on that, especially with the expectation that the clinician, the therapist, would be the one that will bear the brunt of that inequity, right? So the push is, therapists, you bring down your price so that people can afford you. But here's the reality, that clinician and that therapist has to live as well, right? There are larger macro systemic issues that I think need to be addressed in terms of insurance companies, in terms of the payout to the clinician, in terms of how it works for the actual client and the insured person, that I think should not just fall on the clinician just adjusting their price or prices. So yes, definitely that is one barrier. The financial inequity is one barrier. Traditional societal expectations of men, right? A man sitting down, spending an hour, 40, 50 minutes talking, right? That's like, man, get up and go do something. Go get something done, right? And so we have those messages that we send to men to do, to be doing, to be doers. And so the consideration of sitting and stopping and speaking and talking and turning the flashlight inward seems a little bit, some would say, or some would have said, even before the pandemic, that it's not as masculine, right? Some would say it's not as masculine because it is not action oriented. Again, societal expectations. Men should be seen as strong and self-sufficient. What do you need therapy for? Just keep pushing, just push through, right? Again, those are messages that society sends men that I think is another factor that impacts men not going to therapy or having challenges with that or attending therapy. Fear of judgment. Fear of judgment. Again, there's some shifts in the last 5 to 10 years with some of that by the publicizing and the public individuals who have shared that they go to therapy, men in sports, men in media who are saying that they go to therapy. But up to that point, it's like, a man saying he goes to therapy. What's wrong with you? You're weak. You can't handle life's reality. So again, that being another area, another barrier that men experience in terms of attendance to therapy. Representation. From my recent understanding a few years ago, there, in terms of BIPOC therapists, we're only about 12% of the full 100%, right? And that's all who will be included in that category. When you start talking about Black and brown men in particular, the numbers go down even less. So I think there's probably like 2% of therapists are Black women. So that should even tell you how, to a lesser degree, how many Black men are there. And so if a man doesn't have the ability to understand or be educated about how to find a good fit, and that even outside of representation, he can find a good clinician, right? I've had male clients. Then if he's only looking for the surface representation, meaning I want a male, I want a man who looks like, I want a man, and I want a man who looks like me, then the numbers are small. And those people, those individuals, their waiting lists are yay long. And so someone would have to understand and be able to make adjustments to their expectations of what the therapist needs to look like in order to be able to attend and still get the benefits of it. And then the last thing I would say about why men may not go to therapy as a barrier is the push to use other coping skills, right? Just work out. Um, just have sex, just get a drink, and you'll feel okay and not really get to whatever the bottom of things would be. So those would be some of the barriers that I would mention would happen: lack of representation, not being able to find a good fit, fear of judgment, different communication styles, and the misuse of other coping skills and mechanisms rather than finding healthier ones in that way. The last thing I think I want to say is perhaps the lack of community that encourages them to do that, right? If there are healthier men around and they say they're going to go to therapy, men are easily influenced at times, or more easily influenced by other men. Then yeah, if I know my pastor's going to therapy, or my brother or my father's going to therapy, most men are more likely to go in that way, because that's what happens sometimes with women. Oh, you're going to therapy? Who's your therapist? From those social conversations. If those level and depth of conversations are not happening with men around their emotional and mental needs, then it's very likely that they won't go to therapy.
Very good. I would definitely want to dig into this man thing a little bit. I'm this close to going for my counseling certificate.
Good for you. Let me know I can help you.
No. Well, I mean, the only reason I don't want it, only reason I don't want to do it is because I'm old and I don't want to.
Okay, Lawrence, we're talking about
I mean, by the time I complete the 3,000 hours, I mean, it's not the certificate, right? That's like, for me, it's like a year or so.
yeah,
And then I got to do 3 years, 3,000 hours, right? That's like a year and a half, 2 years. I could be sitting on the beach somewhere. Well, that's just I'm just being honest. But I do agree that we need more Black male therapists.
Yeah.
So Nicola is asking a good question. For where did these narratives originate?
Oh, lovely. I love those kinds of questions. The narratives exist in culture, they exist in history, they exist in our family of origin, and they are perpetuated on a daily, ongoing basis. These beliefs, our belief systems are influenced by all of those things. They're influenced by what we see working, by what we see not working in the different systems. We're influenced by explicit statements and comments made in our families of origin, in our social groups, sometimes even in certain churches and faith-based organizations. So all of these beliefs are impacted and influenced by all the many different factors and places and contexts that we have.
Good. Erica says subjective norms, influence of each person's
community. Absolutely. Said like a good sociologist, Erica. Absolutely.
So I know you didn't watch it. There was a situation where there was a Dr. Brantley who is a psychologist, I believe, and she had a conversation. A couple of the YouTube videos that went viral. One with Nick Cannon and Cam Newton, who was a former football player. Do you know who Nick Cannon is?
I know the two names. Yes.
Okay. Okay. So I
I'm
covered those.
I'm going to joke and say my millennial clients keep me informed.
Oh, okay. So those two interviews that they had with her, she was kind of, they were on the couch essentially, and there was a lot of pushback from a lot of different men when you read the comment section of those two particular videos. And you talked about the communication styles that men and women have that are different. And there was a lot of pushback in that they didn't believe what she was saying. They were very skeptical of what she was saying. I know I'm kind of putting you on the spot here because you didn't watch the videos. But you talk about the societal norms and all that. Is there a way to break through that type of thing with men when they see, in particular, the type? And listen, I was very critical of her as well. I'm not, I haven't gone to therapy school and all that, but there is an inherent dislike of therapy because maybe it's the communication styles that are so different or whatever it is. But a lot of men were looking at this saying, this is the problem with therapy, right? Why should I trust this woman, right? She's berating them, she's bashing them, she's projecting a lot of her own issues onto these individuals and her own upbringing and all that. And some of that I saw as well. So what would you say to a man who is very skeptical of therapy, particular, well, yeah, just what would you say to a man to try to overcome those societal norms, and in particular, who may look up to those types of individuals because they are considered alpha male types, right? They're
Mhm.
successful, they're rich, they got a lot of women. So, how do you convince a man who's looking at them and saying, they still have some emotional, mental work that they need to do?
Okay. So I did glance at the videos in our recent conversation today and since our
Oh,
conversation today.
okay.
And I see also that you discussed it with someone else, and I peeked in on that conversation quickly that you had
Okay.
with someone else online. So I did do a little bit of that. So I only had maybe about 20, 30 minutes of glancing and looking at it. So I just want to kind of go on record and saying that. But I'm going to go back to I'm going to use myself as an example. Whenever I get a male person or a man coming to see me as a client, I usually ask in the consultation very transparently and very openly, with regards to their race. And I would sometimes ask this if someone is of a different race as well, but I ask it primarily when I get men. Why would you want to come and see me, a woman, in this very intimate and vulnerable relationship as a therapist? I asked the question very openly because I want to understand where their values are and what their intentions are in terms of coming to see me. They could be many. And so I want to assess what that might be like, right? So when they come in and they tell me why they're willing to work with me or interested in working with me, most instances it's not about my gender. It's about my expertise. It's about what they see online, about how I present myself in the world. It's about aligned values that they've read through different kinds of things. And then last, it's about my methodology that I'm bringing to the table and what I'm using to help and support them. If they are looking for help and that's what they're looking for, and they understand after our consultation how I'm going to approach things, how I'm going to treat them, we come to an understanding and we begin our work together. And if anyone goes and Googles online, I have the funniest reviews from my male clients on Google, because I modify my approach based on the person that's in front of me. Here are a couple of qualifiers that I want to make about these public sessions, right, that are being recorded. I'm not sure if there is an exchange of information prior to these public presentations. That's one. Number two, it is a performance on both individuals' part. The therapist knows that this is going to be broadcast, and the individual does not have the room to be as authentically honest in that setting because of their status and because others are looking at them sitting in that seat. So I believe, this is my opinion, there's a performance that's happening on both individuals' part. The next thing I want to say about situations like those is that we say, if someone is going to go and look at one of those videos or one of those exchanges and say therapy doesn't work, that's quite a large and broad generalization. I don't know, we don't know necessarily what that particular therapist's model or theory or framework is and style, right? My style doesn't work for everyone. So even though they've publicized these particular exchanges, perhaps that woman's style, that therapist style, doesn't work for those individuals, right? Forgetting some of the other things that I've mentioned, including some of the other things I've mentioned. How each therapist works differs by modality, fit, theory, and the client. Again, one of the important things in terms of how to get the most out of therapy is finding a good fit for you, right? I have a therapist, and every now and again she says she's leaving the field because she's older in age, and she makes a recommendation for me to see someone else. I go to that person. I have either a consultation or I have an initial session, and I'm like, yeah, nah. That's not my person, right? Beyond representation, race, gender, based on their approach, their style, how they present, I know clearly that's not my person. Those are not the approaches that are going to work for me and be successful in my work together. That's different than if I'm working with a client and we have a moment of disagreement in the session, right? But that's one of the things that will make me say, that's not going to work. Any clinician, just to go with the comment that was posted there, any clinician and most of the styles and theories, we have to recognize that we're not there to judge the client. This is why I answered you about that in terms of accountability. if you're not here to change and you don't want to own any accountability, it is not my responsibility to make you admit that you're wrong or that what you're doing is wrong. Not my role. When I get clients who are argumentative, not in terms of pushback we can deal with, but you just want to argue every assessment, way of looking at things and perspective that I offer you, then you're not going to be my client, because clearly you're saying that maybe we have a misalignment of values, of beliefs, or what we call in therapy, there's some level of resistance, and you don't want to change. And if you don't want to change your life, then there's no reason for me to continue to like belabor you in any way to get you to change. You have to want to change, and there has to be some level of trust that the person that I'm going to help me change has the expertise, the knowledge, the modality to help me make that change. And then there's also like the season in therapy. Going back to the performative nature of these sit downs. Is it the first conversation? Is it the second? What I can say to my clients after 6 months, and my approach in how I say something to them in 6 months is not the same when I meet them for the first time. We have to build relationship, rapport, and trust. And I don't know if any of those things were established in these presentations that we've had online. So those are just my thoughts from having glanced at it and from the, your posing of the question here today, Lawrence.
Very good. Thank you. So I got 2 more questions, and I'm going to open up the panel if you guys have any more questions. How do we get more men in the field, in particular, psychology, that whole thing? How do we get more men in that? Because if it's inundated, here's the fear, and this goes back, links to the previous question, or the previous question about men, is that it's so heavily dominated by ladies that they are creating the theories, they are creating the narratives, and so therefore many men are just inherently skeptical of its in totality, because it's so dominated by the ladies who are creating the theories. And I advocate for more men in the social sciences as well, so that they can, and I think what's the projection is by 2030, it's going to be like 98% ladies who are in the social science, all social sciences, psychology, sociology, all these different social sciences. I can see the very look of skepticism on your face there. So tell me where, tell me why I'm wrong here.
My reaction is the statement. My reaction for consideration is the statement of creating the theories. I'm going to hold that for a minute, because someone on my Facebook Live said to you, priorities, Lawrence, priorities, when you said you wanted to be on the beach versus studying to help the men in that.
The beach is a priority.
So Lawrence said the beach is his priority, not the men.
I'm 51 years old. I kicked indoors. I did all this. I did it.
So the look that you saw in my face that is easily readable is about creating the theories. Most of the theories were not created by women. Most of the theories that people are getting trained in colleges and universities, in primarily, white-oriented fields, and where the power has not been the woman. We are maybe the implementers and the executioners of the theories. Right. We're not creating the theory. So that was the look that you saw on my face.
No. I probably worded it wrong. Going forward, any new concepts, theories, etc. Going forward, yes, you're right. Everything else, behaviorism, all this type of stuff was created by white males. Yes, yeah. but the fear is, and disabuse people of the fear if it's incorrect, that going forward, if it's so heavily dominated, any new papers being written in 2024, 2025, 2026, more than likely will be written by a woman who has a different style, different way of communicating, in different worldview than a man. That's the point that I was trying to make.
I'm going to dare say that the papers will be written, but the ones that will actually change the narrative are not going to be the ones written by women. And again, I'm talking a lot about power and patriarchy. We're not going to change it. What I do in my office with my 15 or 20 clients is not going to change the culture in that way. It's not going to move that to that degree. Even if there are less men, the men who do exist in the field are going to probably be more promoted and have their work promoted at a higher level in a way that is probably more impactful. So that's the first thing I want to say. We can chat about it a little bit. The second thing is the practice itself is not about, again, I'm going to speak as a clinician now. It's not about the belief system or ideologies of that therapist. I'm going to use the example of people calling me and asking me the question, am I a Christian therapist? I'm going to use that definer as an example. People call, oh, you're a Christian therapist. I said, who wants to know? I want to know. And I go, why do you want to know? Why do you want to know? Well, I want to know if you da 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 da. And I'll say to them, the way that I work, what I believe is secondary to what you believe. As a good, properly trained clinician, it is my work to help you define and clarify your life values, where you are right now, what things you think have impacted you, and where you want to go. My belief doesn't supersede any of those things. Now, in my coaching, I'm a little bit more directive, but with permission to my client. But I've had clients of all religious connections. I've had men and women clients. I've had clients of many different sexual orientations. It's not about what I believe. A good, properly trained clinician has learned how to center the client and the client's beliefs in terms of how is it functioning or working for them, or how is it not. Now, again, having watched a little glimpse of that video, you're right. There was a lot of centering of that particular clinician in that video. But as I said before, this was performance. That therapist, that clinician, that psychologist, those psychologists, when they do that, they're on the spot, they're on the camera, they're there partly for entertainment. And they have to say and do things that cause us to be talking about them, these weeks later. In my therapeutic work with my clients, I'm not performing. I'm centering my clients. As a clinician, I'm aware of where my bleeding happens because I have my own therapist and my own coach. I'm aware of that, and I'm discussing things that come up in the session that tick me off, make me not like them for a minute, or affect me in some ways, or remind me of my mother, father, grandfather, or whomever. I'm doing that work on an ongoing, consistent basis. I've had the same therapist for 18 years. She knows all my dirt. She knows all my story. She's heard about my clients and the places where they trigger me, all of that. I'm doing that work separately so that when I'm working with a client, I am centering, client focused, I'm centering that client's beliefs and if it's working for them or not. If Nick Cannon or Cam Newton, if their lifestyles are working for them and they don't want to change it, and they think this is how they ought to believe, then it is no therapist or psychologist's responsibility to try to break that out of them and tell them that they're wrong about that, unless, we're doing it in that kind of setting that we're doing it. Works for you? Fantastic. Fantastic.
I think that was a big point that many men had. Like, what you're trying to change these people and trying to you're absolutely right. It was definitely I can see your point that it was definitely a performance, but she was trying to, in the performance, trying to tell them that you are still a little boy who needed healing and all this kind of stuff. Meanwhile, these guys are super millionaires that every man on the planet would trade places with in a heartbeat. But I wanted to
can I say, Lawrence, that doesn't mean because they're superstars and successful in those areas of their lives, that in the area that I think I'm hearing discussed, the more intimate part of their lives, that there are not some losses there. However, if they don't define success, if they don't define healthy relationships as part of their success, then they don't. They can define it the way that they choose to, with their money, with the woman, and with all the other things, with the status and the notoriety, all of that. But if they don't want to look at that area of their lives, then you can't make them.
Well, I agree about that. That's the point that I think that's the sticking point that a lot of, in particular, men had, is that you're trying to convince these people of things that are problematic, that are not problematic, and unless they see them as problematic, and I do think that eventually Dr. Bryant, I can't remember, I think it was Nick Cannon, tried to get him to. One of them, you have broken homes, right? You're creating these broken homes. I thought that was pretty powerful to get people to realize, okay, it's not just about you and your selfishness. You might be able to provide the finances that they need, but these kids, they wake up in the middle of the night from a nightmare. They want to run to daddy's room, and you're not there. So getting them to realize that is essential.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk about, and I'm going to open up the panel in a little bit. I see a few more questions coming in, and your people who are watching you can write you on the screen or however you want to get questions.
Feel free to send me any notes, questions, or comments, as well as whether you're here on Judith Rapley Life Coach or you're at Big L as well. Send us the comments, send us your questions, and we'll try to attempt to answer them also.
Yeah, and don't criticize me for not wanting to do anything. I don't,
And yes, the person who said Lawrence should
uh,
prioritize, he said don't criticize him. He has his own life priorities and definition
yeah,
of.
yeah, yeah. The beach and pina coladas is definitely a priority here. So um, dig into I think if my memory serves me correctly, it's like 98% in a few years, all gonna be women. How do you not think that those women who are writing these papers would not eventually change the landscape of the social sciences? Even, I mean, the 1 or 2% of men who are writing the papers, you still think would be able to outshine the 98% of the ladies who are doing it?
That's
And
my, I've been in the field for a few decades now. And yes, there are some books. It's happening. Women are having their impact and influence. And yet, even still, when we look at textbooks, and I teach, and I know you do as well, when I look at some of the textbooks, when I think about the history over time, over the decades, and even over the centuries, it still seems that although the numbers are smaller, in terms of male representation in the social sciences, that the power and impact is still greater. Again, that's an opinion. I haven't studied it, but I still feel that that's the case. I think about it even in teaching as well sometimes. Yes, for example, right? Um, Within the classrooms, the people who are executing the work, primarily women. But yet, when you look at superintendents and those on the boards who have the decision-making power, it's men, right? I look at churches. Happens in a lot of instances. Yes, there are women pastors and preachers, but when you're talking about denominations and those who are in the decision-making seats, it's again women. The churches are filled with women. Cleaning the benches, cleaning the church, singing in the choir and the praise team. But those who are making the decisions are primarily men, even though the numbers are smaller. So it's that understanding and looking at that in different industries and across many different areas that it is my belief that, yes, there are women who are rising to the occasion and there is the influence, but I think the grain of the power might still lie and the top level, not in those who are down here, the thousands down here who are doing the work. It's the few who are up here. And I think that still leans heavily towards male and primarily even white
okay, you don't have to whisper. Okay. Um, all right. So, last question, and then we're going to open it up. Talk about imposter syndrome. This is something I've addressed. I want to
man.
address it more. People keep asking me about relationship stuff, but that was imposter syndrome is definitely a huge thing. I'm going to sit on your couch for a minute. That was definitely an issue. You don't have to perform, but that was definitely an issue for me going through my career at the police department and just moving up the ranks, even with getting degrees, getting certifications, getting all this getting, you still feel bad on the inside. So how do you recommend people deal with imposter syndrome? Give us the short version. Otherwise, they won't want to come to you to get paid to do
Man. Okay, you say don't perform and then you say that. Anyway, so with that said, I'll just give some general ideas about what we now call imposter syndrome. I think the concept was coined or named only recently. I think it's set in the I want to say 1970, but then became popular in the 90s. I see it happening primarily in individuals of color, right? And so, because of that, as a culturally competent therapist, I believe that there's a lot more having to do with our community and history and society than it does the actual individual. We are influenced, as the person who mentioned the societal norms earlier. We are influenced by so many levels and layers of information, and I think that as we are moving in the last decades towards financial and work successes as people of color, moving from the 40s, 50s, and 60s in a broader way. I feel like sometimes familial messages and personal messages and self-beliefs have not always caught up to that, right? So we're out there, we're doing the thing, we're earning the degrees, we're making the money, but yet messages from our parents, observations of our parents, those things, the societal messages about who we are in terms of our self-identity, those things are still happening in counter to what we're achieving and accomplishing. And so the work is for us to keep doing the internal work while we're accomplishing these things, getting the jobs, getting the degrees. Is the work, I think, is for us to take the time to let the internal belief systems catch up to what's happening externally. To do the work to recognize I am enough without the degree. I still matter if I don't make this amount of money. What is my definition of success for my life beyond the accomplishments and the accumulation of things, names, degrees, and so forth? I think it's important for that internal work and personal development to happen. So in summary, I would say we have to look at the history of Black and brown people across the world, globally, not just United States of America, but across the world, because it is different. I think one of my friend and I were talking about how me being raised in Panama, I had it in the 1970s. That tells you my age. You told yours too. But how in the 1970s, I had a Black doll. And so she, growing up in another area here in the United States, she's like, I didn't see one for decades. And realizing that we came from a different place. I heard, you're wonderful, you're beautiful, you can do anything you want to do. So that wasn't a thing for me. But someone who maybe raised in a different culture and hearing other messages, when they accomplish what they accomplish, it's a matter of like, I did this in spite of. And so there's a dissonance, there's a disconnect, there's a gap between the accomplishments and the earnings and the things that are being done and what the general messages are in society, as well as that person's family messages and so forth. And so we have to work through that because we're out here doing things. And in fact, we've been doing things for decades and for centuries, and we've been wonderful. And so it's definitely pushing against some of the historical realities in some places, especially or including the United States of America, that we have to pull against some of that and know that we are all that we are in spite of and despite.
Very good. Thank you for that. The link is in the chat. You can feel free to click on it, and we will invite you up if you want to have a conversation or if you have something to add. And
Lawrence, the person who came at you about priority says he said no judgment, Lawrence, no judgment.
Yeah, okay. Right.
He said he felt judged, so that's it.
All right. Let's see. A couple of questions here I see in the chat. Let's see. First question is by the Smart Singer. Do you believe that these types of performances, the ones that we're talking about, do you think that they hurt the profession?
I think it can. I think it can because people believe everything they see on TV or on social media. Just like when we talk about, these are the horrible things about church, right? Yeah, but we got to talk about what level of church, what pastor, what size church, all of those things. But then when we just throw out the name or the label church, it's the same thing here. Therapy doesn't work. And if this is what therapy is, this is this specific particular clinician on TV with a celebrity in an open setting, doing something that is very intimate in an open way. Yeah, I think it could. And it hurts me sometimes. I have a mixed relationship with the places that we're moving in terms of our therapeutic language and exposure. On one hand, I love the fact that the conversation is out there. We're talking about these things. They're more public. On the other hand, the public display, if not done well, can, as you mentioned, a Smart Singer, can possibly hurt the profession and deter some people, unfortunately. Yeah.
This is to Nicole's point, you have a therapist. Do you suggest, or do all therapists have therapists and all that?
All therapists do not, but I strongly suggest it. I strongly suggest that every therapist and anyone, when I ran my group practice for a few years, I told them, I'm your supervisor. I'm not going to be your therapist. You have to have your own therapist to work in my practice. I strongly, strongly suggest it. I would not be as, I think, successful and as competent and as clear and as centered with my clients as I believe that I am and as they say I am, if I didn't still sit on that side, on an ongoing basis. So I think all therapists should. Absolutely.
Let's see. How do we as Black people balance imposter syndrome when we were required to code switch in order to succeed. And okay, leave it there.
Go ahead. No, I want to hear your point of view while I grab the mind. Go ahead, Lawrence.
No, no, no. Go ahead.
Okay. Maybe I'm gonna guess that maybe you are going here. I might be wrong, but each person determines as a value for them where they are and their choice to code switch or not. It's a personal choice and decision. I was having a very passionate conversation with one of my friends about
Is passionate conversation code for argument? Go ahead. Go ahead.
Is what? Say it again.
You said passionate
No,
conversation.
no. We're both we weren't having an argument. We go hard at passionate topics. I love it. I love with my friends, significant others, to have a nice, rousing conversation and discussion. Especially when we might have different viewpoints on something. It's enlightening to me, and I learned that way. But we were having that, and we were just chatting about me wanting, or someone that is near and dear to me, to make adjustments, maybe code switch, maybe adjust in a certain environment. And she said something very passionately, which was, if all of us change, if all of us adjust, how then will we change the environment? And that conversation is one that I've struggled with, because I went to college wanting to be a school psychologist. And then from there decided I wanted to be a psychologist, because school psychologists were very limited in terms of just grading assessments. And I learned about the assessments and how they were begun. And then I moved into sociology. And that combination of, should the person change, should the environment change, or should they both change, is constantly for me attention that I'm always discussing with my coaching clients as well as with my clinical clients. So the person decides whether they want to code switch or not, whether it falls within their value of authenticity. They decide if being authentic in a certain setting falls for them. And then based on that, they have to own and have their own definition and create their own bubble of awareness and self-awareness as to their value in a particular system or in a particular workplace. You have to create that for yourself. The workplace is not going to give it to you. And it gives some of us less validation than others. So you have to know what you know, that you know, and work on that imposter syndrome, and recognize that if you choose to code switch, you are doing it because you have decided that it serves you some benefit or the other.
Let's see here. You said something, and then let's see. Imposter syndrome, code switch. You said something I was triggered on, but
at the very beginning, you highlighted bleeding on other people. I think if that's what you're coming back to.
No. It was something about code. Changing the environment, and that's the dilemma that I have with psychology versus sociology. Psychology being, you want to change the internal you, where sociology wants broad strokes. I'm painting with here. So, and that's the problem that I think that I would probably, I don't know, which I would agree that there's some changes that need to go on in society. In therapy and psychology too often get you to succumb to, this is the situation. Dr. Amos Wilson, you've heard it. I would assume you heard Dr. Amos Wilson. So Dr. Amos Wilson, famous Black psychologist here in the U.S., would talk about this, right? So, when they would do these different experiments with the rats and with the pigeons and stuff, he would tell us, you guys are the rats. You're the rats. They're trying to figure out how to manipulate you and all this type of stuff, right? So you have to. So it's trying to come out of this idea of acquiescing to this broader dominant type of society and trying to create a new one that's more fair and more just. Yeah. So a lot of times when I think about therapy, I think about, okay, we're trying to get you to go along with the program. And that may be another issue that many men have. It's like, I don't want to go along with the program. I want to break the system. I want to go against it. White, black, whatever, right? They don't like the way that everything is going. Whether, you think about, organizational psychology, just one of the psychologies that people can mention, right? You think about organizational psychology, right? They're trying to understand not only the organization, but how to get individuals within the organization to go along with the broader program. And sometimes the broader program just isn't for me, or we should change it. right? Particularly when you think about, my own background, a lot of times police culture. We had to change the culture. More Black people had to get in there and say, listen, we're not going along with this other stuff. We got to break this culture. So
Right.
that could be one of the issues there.
So I work in it from an and because I have many different settings in which I work, and I'm not a purist. I have made sure to ensure that my continued education includes culturally competent information and so forth. That is a little different. That is a little different for me than it would be for someone who is, for example, a pure Freudian or someone steeped in some of the other more the older, more traditional theories or frameworks. The newer frameworks, and especially when individuals of color are involved and are creating new theories and new frameworks, not even theories, but frameworks more so than theories, there is more information being interjected and injected around the environment and the systemic part of things from a macro level, and not just the how do we get you to just accept and acquiesce to this. And so when I work with my clients, I work with it from an and perspective, whether it's their marriage, whether it's their work environment, whether it's their families. Yes, we're going to start with you. You're the client, you're the identified client, so to speak. And I'm going to make sure that my client is okay. And while they're okay and functioning based on the definition that they're bringing up for how they want to be okay, then it's, if there are things in your environment that don't work for you, do you want to take on? Do you want to get involved in being a change agent in those particular ways? Even as a social worker, my studies did not start in one-on-one clinical work. My studies started in systemic work, right? At Columbia, I went into advanced generalist systems practitioner. That was the area that I went into because I had that issue with the limitation of psychology and traditional psychology. So I went in an area where I was looking at systems and how do we impact system. The rest of the other things I do besides my therapeutic work are about changing systems and helping people change systems as well. So I work from that perspective, and that seems to work for most of my clients, where I'm helping them figure out how they want to define homeostasis or being okay in their lives. And once they are stronger, feel less fragile, and have other goals of making change in the world, how do I support them in doing that as well?
Very good. Very good. Glorious Love says she's late, so she's going to catch a replay for context. That's 50 push-ups. Make sure that you do that. We don't tolerate being late around here. Is there any questions on your end? That's pretty much it on my end here. Did you have any questions on your end as far as in your chat there, or anybody?
Yeah, no additional questions. They're teasing about the passionate conversation that you highlighted as well. Whether it's a passionate discussion or conversation, they're talking about motives and the macro reality. Again, social workers and therapists, therapists are working at the micro level, but there's social workers and other social science individuals who are working at the meso level, organizational level, as you mentioned, organizational psychology, and the macro level, changing the world, having impact, standing up for people so that we don't all just have to succumb to how it is and not address the societal issues, historical issues, racial issues, financial inequities. Those are all things that I believe social workers need to also address, both with the individual so that they can be whole, but also throughout the world as they have ability to make impact outside of the sessions and therapeutic engagement.
Oh, I definitely agree with that. I was just making a distinction between people who go into psychology, that's normally what they're studying, versus people going to social work. Yeah, I
Yes,
definitely agree. It's occurring. It's definitely
absolutely.
occurring. Gloria thinks I'm kidding about them 50 push-ups. I'm not kidding. Let's see. Nicole says, do you have any literature that you would recommend discussing for
that's the one thing I did not have a chance to pull out that I meant to pull out this afternoon. So if anything, I would send Lawrence maybe 3 or 4 books that I recommend, and he can post them with the replay or when we post this on both our chats. But the one that comes to mind quickly, because I'm moving a lot this year, having recently been ill, into looking more at some of the somatic impact of emotional and mental issues, concerns, or challenges on our bodies, is The Body Keeps Score and The Body Keeps Score. And there's another one having to do with the body. There are two body books that I think are important that speak to the intersectionality and the impact of our bodies, our mental wellness, our lack thereof, and our emotional wellness on our bodies. One thing, as I'm saying, that comes back to me is, how does mental wellness or mental issues not addressed show up for Black and brown men, and why it's important? Usually shows up in terms of where they land in the penal system. It shows up in terms of family challenges and difficulties. Where does it seem to typically show up for women? It seems to typically show up in physical ailments and autoimmune diseases. So it's not just a thing or a nice thing or a luxurious thing to get therapy. Not having therapy and not working on our emotional and mental wellness has a cost to the individual, has a cost to our families, has a cost to our workspace. I think it's 75% of individuals think that who are at work think that their job should have and provide more support, or that they're seeing and showing symptoms of mental illness at work, and that's not being addressed. But it also has an impact on our country and in our world globally. So again, you don't have to come to see me. I would love if you do, but I believe that people should get the help and support that they need so that we can all be well and we can all be whole.
Very good. So how do we get in contact with you? You have websites, any books that you published?
Yes.
Email? What do you got for us?
Thank you. So you can reach me on my socials, which is YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram at Judith Rapley Life Coach. Judith Rapley Life Coach. That you can see my name here. Chocolate, NY Chocolate. You spell that really well. So you can reach me there. You can reach me on my website, which is judithrapley.com. Same thing, judithrapley.com. You can reach me there for a possible consultation or to chat more about collaboration. Organizationally, I'm looking to do more work with organizations and businesses who want to focus on the mental wellness or psychoeducation for their employees. That's where people are spending a lot of their time, whether online or in person. So I want to provide some support there as well, besides my individual clients. And then I have on Amazon a book called Imperfectly Perfect, which is a 31-day guide, devotional guide that includes spiritual quotes, as well as assignments and exercises and homework that I typically give my clients. I like to joke and say, if you can't get ready to see me yet, it's not possible. You want to like tease out what it's like or what it sounds like to work with Judith, buy the book, spend the $20, and then after that, sign up for a free consultation and let's chat.
Very good. You guys got all that? So that's really all I had. I mean, and we've been on for an hour and 14 minutes. I really, really appreciate it. It was a great conversation. Thank you so much. There's nothing else in the chat here. I just resubmitted the link if anybody wants to come up. Gloria said, I think you just expounded upon it, the body keeping score, but if not, get the book. So
yeah, get the book and let's chat. The bottom line is that our mental health and our mental wellness impacts all our systems, from our hair to our nervous system to our digestive system. That past traumas are stored in our brain and throughout our bodies. And at times we are reacting to things or being triggered without even knowing how these things have impacted us in some ways. Even if we don't have language about what happened, or even when we don't have specific memories even about the events, the body has absorbed it from prenatal elements and part of our story to throughout our lives. And yes, as Lauren said, get the book too. It's not mine, but get it anyways.
Or they can hit you up for a chat there. So
there you go. There you go.
So that's pretty much it. Let's see. I believe from my great experiences that most believe that they do not need therapy. I believe from great experiences that most men believe that they don't need therapy.
And I would enjoy the conversation there. As Lawrence and I discussed today, I would follow up with curiosity as to why. Whether we're talking about men in general or whether we're talking about specific men, I would follow up with a curiosity rather than a judgment.
I've been getting a lot of most men this, most men that in my comment section. I'm thinking about doing a video about that. Don't hit me with this most men.
Yes,
stuff,
yes. Most men, most women. Here's one more therapeutic phrase. In every situation in your life, lead with curiosity. Ask questions. Don't jump to conclusions. Lead with curiosity.
Yeah. All right, all right. Woman to woman, thank you so much for joining. Listen, I'm going to leave it off there. So, if anybody has a question about anything else, I can stay on for another 14 minutes or so. If there's anything that anybody else wants to talk about, this subject or anything else, I want to thank you to our special guest here for today. I'd like to have you back on. Um, I always think if want to have you back on, that's a good thing. It means I had a good time.
Okay, I did too. It was fun
Right.
having this conversation. Going back to the macro level about therapy as well, and I think you might have hinted at it while we see if anyone else has any questions. There's also the distrust of health systems, of which a clinician, especially if they're insurance based, is connected to a health insurance of some kind. And so there is some distrust for people in general, and perhaps for men, and perhaps for men of color, and perhaps for people of color, in going to a therapist in a clinic or in a hospital. The question about confidentiality, their information, anonymity, all those different kinds of things. So that is, again, another barrier. That just came to me as to why, people may not go to therapy. Distrust of the health system, distrust of the information. That might be another factor too.
I can definitely see that. Brenda, thank you so much. She says, great interview. Thanks to everyone. So I think that's pretty much it. Thanks, and have a good evening to all. I think they want us to get off here. Thanks.
All right. Okay, thank you all. Have a great evening. I've appreciated you on.
Okay, guys, thank you so much. We'll see you. Got a video dropping tomorrow morning. Let's see what else I got here. Make sure you hit that thumbs up. If you did not do it yet, make sure you do that. If you have a show topic, make sure you send me an email. I'll reach out to Professor Rapley as well. Go to the Facebook page. I got a Facebook Big L PhD in community. You can sign up for that. If you want to buy me lunch, I had to buy my son lunch today. It was crazy. Right? These kids, man.
I like that. I should add that to my thing. Add my Cash App and Venmo. You teach me something, Lawrence. I like a good lunch.
Yeah, well, I gotta hit my son with this, man. Buying him lunch. It's crazy. Let's see. Show topics. Hit me up if you're looking for a one-on-one session with me. Make sure you hit me up. You guys hit me an email on my website. I am revamping the website. I'm not happy with how it came out. Let's see what else is here. Lisa says, please watch Not My Father's by T.D. Jakes. He addresses many relationships. All right, so that's it. So we're gonna call it. Guys, have a great night. Video dropping tomorrow morning. You can always hit me up, and if you have anything else. Thank you so much. Thank you to Professor Rapley. You guys have a good.
And thank you, Lawrence, for a lovely, lively conversation.
No, thank you. You're the one who made it lively. So you guys have a good night. tell your chat they don't pick on me.
They didn't. It actually was a male person.
So that brother ought to understand.
It wasn't a woman this time. It was one of the guys.
I really do go back and forth because one of the schools I teach at, they have a good counseling program, and it's really the 3,000 hours. I just don't want to do that. I just don't, because I
understand it, because that was my most painful part. I was already a professional person. I had my practice, had my coaching practice, and that was painful. That was painful to do.
And I haven't worked 40. I mean, I can't work 40 hours. I mean, I sit down and start correcting papers. I'm like an hour in. I'm like, I gotta get out of here. I gotta stop. Right. So being someplace for 40 hours.
You get to do it. You get to do it how you want to do it. When I did mine, I did 2 days a week.
But that's going to take even longer then, right? You got to get 3,000 hours.
I already had my business. I wasn't in any rush. So I just did my 16 hours a week.
Now, can you do it? Here's the question. Can you do it online, or you got to be in the office?
I think you can now do it online. I think you can do it online depending on the organization you're doing it with. Some organizations, because they're giving you the hours, so to speak, they want you to come in. It's usually an organization that wants you to come in and do the I want to say the dirty work. They want you to come in and do it. I don't know if they will let you do so much online.
how am I going to do that from the beach? I mean, how am I going to? I just don't understand how I'm going to be able to do that.
As my person said on my website, priorities, Lawrence, priorities. You do 40 hours a month, and then you go on the beach the next month.
That might be a plan. That might be a plan. That might be a plan. I don't know. I want to be able to do it. I just don't want to go through it. So
yeah.
If I could do it remotely, oh my God, I would definitely do it.
If you can find an organization that would be okay with you doing your hours remotely or some of it, or then go for it. Yeah. Go for it. I'm going in your direction soon. I'm looking to work on this PhD. So I might need to chat with you about that at some point.
Yeah, I'm available. Yeah, it's not hard. Well, it's hard, but it's worth it. So.
See, that's the same thing I say about the counseling degree. The hours are hard, but it's worth it.
I don't know. Interrupting my Mai Tais and pina coladas is going to be a problem, man. I don't know.
Work 8 hours if you get it to do it remote, and then you have the Mai Tai after.
If I could do it remotely, listen. If I could do it, I definitely have to do the Mai Tais after because I'll be drunk during the sessions.
Not during the day. Please don't do that. Someone in a certain setting talked about the office having the little bottles hidden in the filing cabinet, and I just put my hand on my face like, what? Yeah. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, no, if I could definitely find a place that would offer me to do it remotely, I would definitely do it. Definitely. I definitely want to do it to be a resource in particular for Black men.
Yeah.
So. I think also for police officers as well who've gone through some traumatic situations. I definitely want to be able to talk to them about that. So.
There was a certain time during COVID, right before and then during, that I had 4 police officers as clients.
Yeah. They go through a lot.
3 men and 1 woman. Yeah, at one point.
People don't realize that they go through a lot. The things that we see in their family lives. Their family lives are a mess because of the schedules and stuff. So they police officers go through a lot.
Yeah, see, Brenda is even encouraging you to go for it, Lawrence.
I know. Listen, I'm telling you, it's really the schoolwork's not scaring me. It's really just it's really the hours. That's the issue.
It will go by sooner than you know. I started in a certain organization, and I counted out the hours, and in counting out the hours, it was going to take me whatever I remained when I got to them, 1.5 years, and I ended up liking the clients that I had so much that I ended up staying there, even though I had my own practice, for an extra 1.5 years, beyond completion of my 3,000 hours.
So it took you 1.5 years to do the 3,000 hours.
No, I had maybe about 1,500 before from working with a private practice person. Then I went into an organization to do the remaining hours, and I counted out that I would need to do based on how many days I wanted to be there, because I only wanted to be there 2 days a week. I didn't want to be there for 5 days a week. So with the 2 days a week, it was going to take me about 1.5 years, but then I ended up hanging out with them for another 1.5 years because I like the clients so much.
I'll look into it. I will look into it. So, All right.
So I'll find out. So can you tell me how I can download this to my YouTube? Is there a way? Can you let me know how to do that?
Sometimes on the YouTube channels, it has the download option. I didn't record it. If I didn't, I will download it and I'll send it to you.
Okay, that'd be great.
But usually when I look at YouTube, it says download, and I know other people are downloading my stuff, and he puts it somewhere else. So just let me know what you find out, and if you can just tell me, Lauren, I need you to do it for me. So
probably will lean in that direction. Look at that. Another person said, you can do it, Big Al. Your fellow men need you. Everyone is championing you doing this, Lawrence.
Yeah.
And
they better buy me some coffee. Then you know what I'm saying? It's gonna send me some coffee, but I still got to pay a little bit.
We will do it for the culture, and we will do it for the men.
It ain't free.
We will do it for the culture, and we will do it for the men. We'll make sure you get through it.
Yeah. Well, it ain't 100. It ain't free, so it's only a discounted rate. So y'all want me to do it so bad. So. All right. Yeah.
Great talk. We'll talk about maybe getting back on for the relationship conversation as we discuss and take it from there. But have a great one.
Okay, you guys take care. Have a good night.
Everyone. Good night, everyone. Bye-bye.